Hello and welcome to the March edition of the annual Watchlist, where we discuss the films that have left such a deep mark on us that we end up watching them every year and continue the suffering. For this month, we will be talking in depth about one of the films that made me who I am and weirdly my biggest comfort film. I think I watched this at least 15 times.
Hmm.
Harika has watched this, what, three
This is
times?
my second time.
Second time. We are going to talk about Spotlight, released in 2015. Now, before we even get into anything about this film, trigger warnings are necessary
Yes.
because the film deals with very sensitive material. Um,
Children's sexual abuse and religion.
yeah, and
We've
how
thought long and hard whether or not to do this movie at all, based on how political it can get. But we're going to try our level best to stick to the facts
yeah.
and just talk about the movie in itself and nothing else. So there aren't any folks with pitchforks outside our bedroom.
But yeah, with that out of the way, welcome to the show.
Yes. And if once again, trigger warning, if you're not comfortable listening to this, please, we're not doing this for the number of views or the listeners. We're doing this primarily for ourselves. And if you are a film fan, listen to us. But if any of this makes you uncomfortable, especially because there is sexual assault and harassment involved, please think twice before listening to it.
Or, since this is based on a true story, you can look it up yourself.
Watch the movie
Yeah.
before listening to us. And if you are a devout religious person, then again, maybe you might, you should probably listen to this, but you might not want to. Up to you entirely.
Again, yeah, we are not here to bash anyone's political views or anyone's religious views. We are just here to bash pedophiles, which, you should not be defending regardless of where you're from. That being said, let's talk about the film. We start with the director, a dude called Tom McCarthy, who is also an actor. I have not seen a lot of his films because he hasn't made a lot of films. But one you might be familiar with, and one he did not direct, but he was the co-writer for the plot of this one little animated film called Up.
Oh shit,
Yeah,
that's nice.
yeah. He also made another film which is in my list, which if we get to, you haven't seen it, we
Okay.
haven't watched it together, but maybe someday.
What is it?
I think it's Good Night and Good Luck, but we'll talk about it later.
Okay.
Film, this one, Spotlight, stars who's who of,
Hollywood.
actors.
Yeah.
You,
Big names.
Michael Keaton, Mark Ruffalo, Rachel McAdams, Liev Schreiber,
Stanley Tucci.
Stanley Tucci. Fuck, dude.
Yeah.
There isn't a lack of talent on the screen.
Oh.
So even if you are coming at this from a, hey, let's study acting, this is a wonderful film to watch because it is so minimalistic. There are no effects. Or, there are no
Minimal.
dishum effects. Because for...
This movie was made in the format of a documentary, or as close as it could be in the form of a documentary.
yes, it was made on a budget of 20 million. It's an indie film. Okay? And it made, I think, a global box office of 98 million.
Wow.
Yeah.
And of course, swept all the awards.
Which you might want to read out what exactly they won.
I'll have to get to the wiki page. I'm currently on the Howard Shore page for now.
Okay.
I don't want to switch back and
Which
forth.
you might want to start with the music because those notes on the piano are the first thing we experience as the credits are rolling into the title, and then
Good catch on that, because he wrote and composed for those, obviously, like, who doesn't know Howard Shore, but uh, for the reference, Lord of the Rings, the Hobbit series.
you can never be sure about who knows how Howard Shore.
I mean, I've fallen asleep to the Lord of the Rings
Mm,
track.
mm.
It's,
Chills every time.
yeah. Um, he used a 10-piece chamber orchestra with piano being the primary instrument to
Mhm.
highlight the film's theme and motives. Now, in this film, instead of writing music for the characters, which he did for The Lord of the Rings,
Makes sense because the characters are so much larger than life and everything. They
yes,
they demand their own themes.
but that's not the case here. The
Mm.
theme and the motive is what is more necessary, and
Right.
that's what he picked.
Right.
Um, he said that I look for the rhymes of the film, how the actors move, how the dialogue is expressed, how the scenes are cut and lit. That's
Interesting.
what he takes
Interesting.
to make music.
And speaking of lighting, this is a very well lit film.
Oh, yeah. But
Very, very well
we're
lit
getting
film.
ahead. The score consisted of a 10-piece orchestra, like I mentioned, piano, electric keyboard, a harp, percussion, fiddle, accordion, electric bass, electric guitar,
Bass.
acoustic guitar, and a French horn. I cannot recall when I
I
heard the
don't
French horn.
think I heard one either.
Hmm.
I guess another reason to watch the damn thing again.
So he felt that the chamber orchestra used the thematic language to work as a theme to various approaches in terms of how the music was used depending on the theme itself. He recalled that the scene he found hardest to score was the directory investigative montage and the ending that connects the residence of one of the spotlight team to the close vicinity of one of the accused priests. Now, this was pre-internet investigation, so he used a lot of old-timey approach towards making music as well. Was difficult but successful, is what he says. Some of the scenes he recalled was in the conclusion where Robbie, who was played by Michael Keaton, returns back to the spotlight office and the camera turns close to him. And though he does not say anything, the music makes the shift that matched his expression, that he had accomplished what he had set out to do, as he got the story out in a way that he wanted. But note that it's not triumphant by any means, because it ends on an extremely tragic note.
Yep.
You see frame after frame after frame of places where this abuse has been reported. Reported, might I add. Not that it
Confirmed.
happened, yeah. Obviously, this happens everywhere, but we've only had 5 frames of 51 places. You do the math.
That's 254
There you go, across the globe
that they have reported on.
that they have reported on. That, so yes, ends on a tragic note. So it was difficult for him to
Hmm.
create all of this music. And on the topic of music, since the movie uses a lot of silent scenes, I also want to mention the sound editors. Glenn Gothian, Heather Gross, and Paul Su. I don't know how to pronounce that name.
Su.
HSU.
Oh, Sue.
Su.
I know.
So, sound was done by these geniuses. They're what I would like to call it the B-roll of music. You know, your ASMR of opening the bottle, things like that. Beautifully done. Used silence extremely well. That's as much as I would like to talk about music.
For me, I mean, I first watched this film, I think, around 2016,
Mm.
and I've been watching it steadily every year since.
Mm.
The first thing that grabbed my attention back then, and the first thing that grabs my attention now, is the piano bits. Like,
Almost haunting.
you know, it's, I don't even want to call it haunting. I don't know if it's haunting. It's just melancholic
Mm,
with a touch of hope in it, which you need if you're the survivor or something like that,
right,
for someone to believe you.
right.
And which is something these reporters struggle with too.
True.
They've lived in this city for fuck knows how long, and only now are they learning that priests in their city have been abusing children and taking advantage of them, and they think that one priest doing this is bad enough. Then
Hmm.
they find that it's 13, then they find that it's 70.
90.
And yeah, 90 reported,
Hmm.
70 confirmed.
Hmm.
And this is 2002 alone,
And in one city.
one city,
Not a district, not a state, one city.
which back then had 5,90,000 approximately people,
Hmm.
of which there were maybe 1,000.
Yes, that's what the end credits said. So
Yeah.
it's 1 in 500 people who
Yeah.
were abused. That's statistically, it's not a big number, but abuse is abuse.
hmm And they were doing it to kids.
Kids, that's what makes it
I mean,
awful.
after I read the film, I went and checked the stories out, because these articles are all available on the internet now.
Thanks to them.
Thanks to them, the letters too,
Mm.
and
Thanks to them, as in the original journalists
yeah,
and the lawyers who worked for it.
some victims were as young as 4 years old.
4 years old. Um, okay, since we're still talking about the music, let's not digress into emotion. The movie had a total nominations of 134, and
Jesus,
yes, and it won 69 awards.
nice.
So I'm not going to bother listing out any of them,
69
but
awards,
heck, that's a long list of accolades.
and I am pretty sure it won the best film Oscar
Academy
that year.
Award for Best Picture 2016, Academy Award for Writing, Original Screenplay, Screen Actors Guild Award for Outstanding Performance by a Cast, and guess who all got it? Everyone.
Makes sense. It is an ensemble cast. There is
Critics'
no
Choice
main
Movie,
character.
Gotham Independent Film, I'm sorry to talk over you.
Hmm.
Satellite Award for Best Motion Picture, Independent Spirit Award, Independent Spirit Robert Altman Award, New York Film Critics Circle Award. The list really goes on. There's a BAFTA award in here.
Yeah, I guess they did something right.
Dude, 69
Nice.
out of 134.
That's more than 50%.
It's
The quality speaks for itself, and I think if you are a film fan, or you either want to study film, or if you are an insane person, you want to study journalism, I mean, this is a must watch for you.
right. If you want to study film, on the topic of that, since you mentioned it, I was going to do this at the very end, but my cousin, who I love from the bottom of my heart, Anu, if you're listening, this is specifically for you, my love. She asked, what are the things that you guys look for while watching and critiquing a movie?
Oh god.
And yes, I just want to list out the things that we have written down from the various videos we've watched to learn about critiquing movies. First, we do, Anu, is audio. We look at the background music, character themes, songs. Then we look at video, editing, camera work, lighting, cast, opening credits, and aesthetics and art. Now, if you're doing opening credits, you also look for end credits. Then the last thing we look at is the narrative. Plot holes, pacing, ending, dialogue, acting, themes, and arcs, whether it's towards the realistic end or the more abstract end of filmmaking. These are the things that we try to review.
And this film works extremely well
Also,
because
I
it
love you.
is extremely simple.
Yes.
There are no character growth arcs necessary, because that is not the point. There is no flashy sequence necessary, because that is not the point.
No.
The point is to tell a basic story of people who love their city coming to grips with the fact that evil exists in
Around
every
them.
corner.
Mm.
Because if you haven't guessed already, the theme of the film is how Catholic priests take advantage of young children. Um, and the film shows this with every scene or every other scene which is set outside. There is a church that you can see or
Right.
hear.
Right. Most 90% of the publicly framed shots have a church in the background, or you
Or,
walk towards one.
or if they are talking in one particular scene where they talk to a priest who confesses,
Mm.
he shuts the door, the reporter turns around, and you see kids cycling down the
Because
street.
there's a school down the lane.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, no-
Go, so we were talking about cast. One particular mention I wanted to do was how pleasant it was to see Sabretooth dressed in this movie. I haven't seen him in anything else apart from X-Men, and it's just nice to see him clothed.
He wore clothes in X-Men Origins. He had that weird coat thing he wore. But
Right,
he-
but
he-
I mainly remember him hairy-chested,
Mm,
very
that
Roy
is true.
Keane.
That is true. Jesus Christ.
But yes, going back, we've talked about music. We've talked about awards, accolades. What do you want to talk about next?
Which actor had the, according to you, what was your favorite performance that you
Oh,
saw?
I'm not going to pick.
No?
No. If I did have to, at gunpoint, Mark Ruffalo, when he loses his shit, was such a moving performance that you just can't help but well up a little.
I definitely think that, he did the Avengers for the money, obviously.
Obviously.
But and this
So
came
did
out
everyone else.
this came out 3 years afterwards.
He's done great movies.
He has
Except
great movies
one
like,
which we will cover
View
later.
from the Top.
Yes, View from the Top.
It is a great movie.
Eh,
One that everyone should watch.
No, one that everyone should watch after reading Richard Ayoade's book.
That's the thing. It's the one of the very few films with a book about it.
Yeah.
But regardless, Mark Ruffalo, I think, does. He remains the heart of the team because he is the emotional core of it. Everyone else may be more pragmatic minded, but from the very beginning, he's like, "Hey, that's great. We're going to sue the church. Let's go." He's just happy. He's like a chipmunk on coffee. He's just ready to.
Also, the casualty with which the chief editor says we're going to sue the church and nobody bats an eye.
That's common. That's it.
I guess in investigative journalism, that's
Yeah.
how it is.
Yeah.
Speaking of investigative journalism, I absolutely loved the little tips and the nuances of any investigative field, as a matter of fact. There was this one particular scene where Ruffalo barges into Stanley Tucci's office. He takes his chance when the secretary goes to get a cup of coffee. He just takes his moment and barges in. And it kind of shows you that if you go by the rules in most fields, as a matter of fact, you can't get things done.
Yeah. The thing about journalism, and here we slowly come into my experience with the thing.
Because for the record, he is a
I
was
was.
a journalist.
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely accurate what they show on the
Right.
film, because journalists, as a rule, you have to be able to take advantage of every opportunity given in front of you, or you just have to make it happen. And Mark Ruffalo makes it happen. He is given Stanley Tucci because Stanley Tucci is a pain in the ass, and guess what? So is he. And every single journalist on screen, I think, does such a great job of representing the profession. I mean, you see in a lot of films where the journalists are corrupt or they don't do their jobs, but this is one of the few films that while watching it, I felt a sense of pride knowing that, hey, this is my profession, this is what I do for a living, and it can be a positive thing. Not everyone has to get on TV and shout about what the nation wants to know or be accused of lying or forging whatever. Because that's the kind of journalists you are often times encountering on films. It not only was it a great change of pace for me, but also at that time, because I was in the field, it gave me a great ideal to hold myself to.
Mm.
That, hey, this is the
Sets
kind
a good
of,
benchmark.
yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, not everyone is going to get a story like that to work ever in your life. It's very, very rare that you get a chance that something or the other comes up accidentally.
And even if it does, it's even rarer that you have the balls to go ahead with it.
And you have a team and superiors who say, yeah, go for it.
Or
We're
supportive.
behind you.
Right.
Back in the day, yeah, sure. The newspaper, the print medium was absolutely fearless, and having grown up reading papers like that with the editors and things who were uh, not afraid to challenge certain people, it it was nice to see that, because during the Me Too movement, a very prominent editor, MJ Akbar, was I don't know if he was ever convicted, but there were accusations and allegations against him, and I was like, and I was smack dab in the middle of my bachelor's master's transition when that happened, and I was like, if is that the end goal really? Like,
What is? You have to give me a little more context.
he was accused of molesting a female co-worker.
I see.
Okay, and I thought, I mean, I because I had come into the field with a whole head full of idealism, saying that, oh fuck, I'm going to be the change that the world needs to see, and yeah,
As one should, honestly.
yeah, I mean, yeah, if you get into it, the job wrings that out of you extremely quickly in the first 2 months. But I think it's necessary to go in there with a desire to do good. But while you're studying to become this, if you see a prominent name in your field just get accused, whether true or false, I don't know. I don't care. I didn't follow up. But it sort of taints the image. It's like if you're trying to be a cricketer and suddenly news comes out about Sachin Tendulkar saying that, oh, hey, I used heavier bats just so I could hit the ball further.
Right. Right.
It becomes an issue. And in a world like that, seeing something like this, and yes, investigative journalism related films are getting more prominence nowadays. And there have been great films about it too. But nothing that had shaken the world like this film. I remember when it came out and it started winning stuff left, right, and center. I never expected a film about journalism to win an Oscar. I never expected an indie film about journalism to win an Oscar. It won two.
Oh.
You read out yourself the Academy Awards.
Oh, so the Academy Awards are out.
Yes.
I see.
Yeah.
I could not be bothered. But
Yeah.
I think I should now that we're in this. I should
Not
probably
really.
at least
Not
know.
really. The Oscars are a whole mess
I
that
know.
we'll talk about some other time.
I know, but at least when movies like this are recognized, you'd want to think, oh, there is some credit given to good movies instead of movies. I don't want to name movies. Never mind. Never mind.
But yeah, from the very first moment
Mm.
where the film opens, disregarding the first sequence,
Mm.
you see someone is retiring at the Boston Globe office
Mm.
and they're giving a little speech.
Mm.
And the banter from the newsroom, I felt so familiar to it because
Mm.
that's just how people like us talk. Someone's retiring, let's not make it sad,
Mm. Mm. Mm.
shit like that. It's just the kind of humor you learn to embrace
Mm.
in those newsrooms.
Mm.
Uh, and nothing was over exaggerated.
No. That's what acting, dialogue uh, were all so spot on
Mm.
that you did not have a moment to look away from the screen.
Oh no. Hmm.
Speaking of screens,
Mm.
from the very beginning and throughout the movie as well, the framing, set especially in office spaces or even in public spaces most of the time, are wide,
Hmm.
and they make the journalists and everyone else small.
Mm.
They aren't the center of the frame, and it kind of gives you this feeling of a speck in the universe sort of a thing, trying to cause a ripple. It does the job well.
Because that's what you are, right?
Right.
It's a city of hundreds of thousands of people.
Mm-hmm.
And you are trying to uncover needles in haystacks.
Right.
Because,
Needles in haystack were, for the record, again mentioned in the movie, for molesting a child, the priests would have to pay $20,000 and get a jail-free card.
yeah, that was the fine that they had to pay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that
And
is only if they were reported. And I'm pretty sure 90% of them did not, because of shame and guilt.
and
And
they were kids.
right, they did not know any better. They
And
didn't have anyone to go to because they would always pick and choose their victims. Again, because these are predators, let's not deny that. Victims were children from rough backgrounds, poor
broken homes.
backgrounds, broken homes.
They just needed someone to trust. And I mean, if you,
And
like
if you
they
go to
say in the film,
right, if you go to the church from a very young age, you're groomed to feel guilty, to feel like a sinner.
and that's what Catholicism is all about.
Right.
It's about the guilt, and only God can save you.
Right. And who is this person that's going to lead you to God? The God man, who
The
is the
priest.
priest.
And like they say in the film, like word to word, when a priest gives you special attention or comes to your house, it's like God came to you,
Right.
right?
Right.
And are you going to say no to God
Mm.
if He asks you to, do something?
Mm.
It's a very, very difficult problem, common, sadly, and
Predators.
just a different kind. And I wish they had spent more time with the one person who did confess, Robert
Right.
Paquin,
No,
because
it was absolutely enough. He said what he had to say multiple times, as a matter of fact. He said, but it wasn't for my pleasure. I did not derive any pleasure
yeah,
from
then
fooling around with the boys.
then why did you
And it
do it?
wasn't rape. Believe me, I know, because I was raped. It was enough. What he said was,
No, I wanted more because I want to know why he did it.
because it was done to him. So he thought it was normal. Read between the lines.
Sure, but for stories like this, you cannot read between the lines.
This was a 2 hour, 10-minute movie.
Yeah.
For a Hollywood film, that's long.
I guess.
And it was tight writing. Like I said, sure, maybe you want a little more out of him, but whatever we got out of him
Oh, I'm not saying it wasn't
shed
enough.
light on a whole other spectrum.
Because it gives you an insight into what these fuckers are thinking.
And
How?
not all of them, because not all of them. Now, this dude wasn't a predator, because a predator would never confess, or would rather not confess.
Now, see, I think you're wrong.
Okay.
Because they are confessing, otherwise, internally at least.
Mm.
Because they are being found out.
Mm.
And these assholes are
They're
being
being
shuffled
found
around.
out. They're not confessing.
And even if they confess, they're confessing to each other.
Right.
Right? And
To other predators who are also doing the same thing. So it barely
yeah,
matters.
and by confessing in front of God, if you are, I don't know how it works, but confessional leads to removal of guilt by saying Hail Mary 3 times or whatever the
Right.
fuck, right?
Right.
So the sense of sin is not being carried around,
Mm. Mm.
right?
So you go scot-free.
Yeah. In his conscience, at least.
Mm. Mm.
So it gives you a insight into how these things work, because, and that's why I want a little bit more insight into how these fuckers work, because I think that's the only thing that's missing from this film. The only thing. If I had one
I think
nitpick,
it would
that would be
take
it.
away from the crux of the movie if we understood any more about the predators. This isn't about the predators. This isn't about for us to understand how the predators work. This is about the victims
Hmm.
and how the system continuously protects them.
Hmm.
That's the crux of the film. If
Yeah.
you knew anything else about the predators, there is a small possibility that you might feel bad for them. Like we already do for this one dude who said he was raped. And that's enough for us to feel bad for him.
Maybe. Not for me, but.
Sure, I'm sure there are a few people I feel bad for him. Not because he fooled around with boys, but for the fact that he was also raped.
And we only have his word to go on.
Sure. Sure. But it's always going to be a case of he said, she said.
Hmm.
So, if they ventured out a little more into the predator's mindset, the victims wouldn't get the justice they deserved.
But for people like that who want more clarity on how that mind works, you
There
can
are
go ahead and read the articles.
multiple
Read the articles. There are dozens of them. That
dozens of confessions too.
Yeah.
Written, handwritten.
You can read all of them. Like, just read the work that these people have done. I mean, the film was inspired for a reason, and this is a story from 2002, almost 25 years ago. But
And these cases have been reported since the 80s, 60s actually. But it did not come to light for
in a mass
reasons.
scale, at least.
Yeah. That scale of investigation wasn't done. Speaking of church, I liked that they had taken a political angle because the chief editor was Jewish. And I think the lawyer who was hired by the cardinal to get him out of such cases says to Robbie, the
He
chief
he
of-
wasn't a lawyer.
He wasn't a lawyer?
No.
Yes, he was.
No, he wasn't. He wasn't a lawyer.
What was he then? Because that's all he said. I did my job.
Oh, Jim. Yeah. Jim
Yeah,
was a lawyer.
Sullivan.
Yeah. Jim Sullivan was a lawyer. Yeah.
Yeah, he was the one who first points out this angle that, he's not married, he's Jewish, doesn't like basketball. I don't know why that matters.
Baseball, but yeah.
Yeah, right.
He's just making joke
Right.
conversation.
And he wants to go against the church. I mean, sure, that's going to turn a few heads.
Yeah. I mean, if you wrote it like that, sure.
Exactly.
I mean, what does he have to lose?
Right.
And other people say that he wants a religious war.
Absolutely. That could be the angle you could take. But then Stanley Tucci points out towards the end of the movie that it takes an outsider to look at the flaws in the system.
Yeah. And not only that, he also says that, look at these people, this city, they behave like they're so much better than us. Look at how they treat their kids. this film just hits you with one after another. And if you are not prepared for the level of emotional whiplash you're going to get, might leave you a wreck for a few days.
Right. It is one of those films that give you a hangover.
Oh, most definitely. Uh, Speaking of the complicity of people, okay, you have Jim Sullivan, the lawyer, on one hand. You have Eric McLeish on the other, right? Jim Sullivan has been called in to, since he rounded out all 70 names. I'm going to assume he worked on all 70 of those,
Absolutely.
which means there were probably more.
Yes.
There were probably more that they did not get, which he is not going to volunteer the information of, obviously, because he has to sign an NDA.
Did he have to sign an NDA?
Oh, yeah.
That was never mentioned.
All the lawyers had to sign the NDA. Eric McLeish also had to sign an NDA. He can't speak otherwise.
That's why they keep saying they can't
And
speak.
there are no court records.
I like how their ethics come out when they have to talk about this publicly, but they have no ethics when they have to protect these scumbags, for a lack of a better word.
I mean, job, right?
Job, yeah.
What can you do? Are you going to say no to money?
Where do you draw the line?
Depends. Depends on the person. And how many of those can you do before you stop giving a fuck and actually, like Eric McLeish, sent a list of 20 fucking names
Yeah.
that the paper ignored at the time. And I think that just hardened his stance. Like, clearly the paper doesn't give a shit.
Right.
Why
And
should-
he was certain about the fact that this story did not need any other newspaper, did not need press in particular. It needed spotlight.
Oh, yeah.
That's why they sent it to them.
Yeah.
5 years.
5 years. And that guy, I forgot the actor's name, but he also plays Barry Allen's father in the DC Justice League film.
Oh.
Yeah, he's in jail. So whenever I see him, I think, oh, it's that fucking lawyer guy from Spotlight. So he's that guy for me. He'll always be the Spotlight guy for me. And he just has one of those scumbaggy faces.
Right.
From the moment that he is introduced, he has this smug, lawyery
Yeah.
feel about him. But
Eric?
yes, like they say that he was on the TV a lot,
Right.
handsome man.
Right.
But that last confrontation with Michael Keaton and Rachel McAdams' character, where he comes out and says that we have two stories here.
Right.
One about clergy doing this to kids, and two, a story about
Lawyers protecting them.
lawyers turning child abuse into a cottage industry.
Right.
We
That is
are-
exactly what he says.
We are
Right.
going to write one of those stories. Which one do you want us to write?
Which one do you want to read?
Yeah. The fucking change in this man's face when he realizes that, oh, now these assholes are trying to be all high and mighty.
Right.
When I tried to...
Right. It wasn't guilt.
No, it was
Oh,
anger.
you finally reached
was
where I have
anger.
been since the last 5 years.
And I fucking gave up because of you assholes.
Right.
Because you did nothing with what I gave you.
Yeah.
It was anger, the way he just turns around and walks away and says, and this guy says, give us the list, and he says, check your clips, Ravi. That is not guilt, that is anger. That is boiling,
Yeah.
ignored paladin anger.
Right.
And then you have Jim Sullivan, who, until pressed to a point by his friend, does not open his mouth. Goes to golf with this guy. Is friends with, their wives are friends. And when asked, obviously you can't go against the NDA, right? But having settled so many cases, like you asked, where do you draw the line?
Where do you draw the line? And I'm fairly certain that with 70 priests, it's not just 70 cases.
Oh no, absolutely not. If even if I were to assume 2 cases minimum, 2 victims minimum per priest, that's 140.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, if I might be misremembering, but each of those priests were accused of abusing at least a dozen kids.
Yeah,
At
absolutely.
least a
Because they were
dozen.
reassigned or
Yeah.
unassigned multiple times.
Yeah. They were sent to what?
A
Clinics?
therapy
Yeah.
clinic?
Yeah. And then just shipped off elsewhere.
Right. A corrective therapy
Yes.
clinic.
Correction clinics.
Right,
Yes.
right.
So, and this has been going on since the 60s. This has been going on since the 60s, to the point where as someone from higher up or had to write an official letter to the cardinal saying that, hey, this is happening, what are we doing about this,
Right.
which was not acted upon.
Obviously, why would he?
the card
He has his flock to protect.
the cardinal, I don't know.
Itself is another character. I don't know
Dude,
who was cast to be the cardinal, but he did such a great job that from the first time he's on frame, I've wanted to smack his face.
it's that righteous, holier than thou.
Right, right.
And when Marty Baron goes to meet him, he tries to be like, hey, we're on the same team because I used to be an editor also,
Right.
right? And he took a stand for civil
Yeah,
rights.
civil rights, which put him on hot seat, and he says that it's not a great place to be, especially in a small town where it's very easy for everyone to go against you.
Yeah.
And he mentions that Boston, unlike New York,
Or
is
Miami.
or Miami. I don't think he mentions Miami, but yeah,
Whatever.
is still a small town in a lot of ways, and you
And
will soon find that out.
and he also has the gall to say that he thinks that a city functions best when its great institutions work
Work
together.
together.
I'm like, dude,
You're working
what is
together to
wrong
do
with
what?
you?
No, see, theoretically, on paper, he's absolutely right. Unless the education system, the bureaucracy, the law, the police, unless these industries work together, you can't actually function.
No, I completely understand.
If
Okay,
everyone's working like individual silos, nothing's going to get done.
I get that. In class 6 or 7, whenever they diversified or broke
Sciences into
social
multiple
studies
parts, right?
also, right? History,
Right,
geography, civics, whatever.
right.
We were taught about the 3 pillars of society, like the executive, the legislature, and the judiciary. All those things need to work together. But the fourth one is the media. And that needs to be completely independent so as to not get biased. Because if you work with someone, you will end up owing someone some favor. Someone will donate something to you. And if they asks you, hey,
Turn a blind eye for this
when
particular issue. Right,
when,
right.
and there are plenty of stories where people have done the same thing.
Obviously.
So I understand where the cardinal was coming from for that statement.
But what the editor says about the media needing to act alone is also on point.
Yeah. And up until that conversation, until it ended, I thought, okay, these guys are intellectually, sort
Conversing.
of fencing around the fact. But then he gives them a present. It's a big fucking box looking thing, wrapped with a ribbon shaped like the cross.
Yes,
Okay?
and you cannot miss that because
No.
again, we look at every frame and we have to look at every decision on the frame as a conscious decision by the director. And this was an obvious cross. Why would you put a ribbon around a box that way? Normally, you wouldn't.
And he goes to his car, opens it up, and it's a copy of the Catechism, which is
A guide to
a guide for
Catholicism.
Usually given to new recruits or
New converts.
converts, you know, explaining the doctrine in a easy to understand question answer sort of
Right.
format.
Right.
And that is an extra insult because this guy is a Jew.
Yeah.
He's a Jew.
Uh, but it doesn't matter whether you're a Jew, you're a Muslim, you're a Hindu, Jain, Buddhist. It doesn't matter to them, does it? Their sole mission is to convert as many people as they can and take them all to heaven.
Mm. Save them, right?
Right.
Because according to them, that's how they will save the world.
And according to them, that's how their karma points go up.
Right. Right. Because you bring more people into the light,
Right.
whatever. And I get that. I understand.
I understand the logic, despite it being dumb.
Yeah.
It's still a followable logic.
Yeah. But the fact that you would do that to someone you are inviting, okay, Marty Baron was invited to Lake Street to meet the.
I don't know why you're so surprised by this.
I'm not surprised. I'm angry. I'm pissed off.
Right.
I am
right.
pissed off. Like if it had been me,
Yeah.
and I had gone over there representing my newspaper
Yeah.
as and told you to your face that I do not want our institutions to be interlinked, and you pull that shit on me,
Yeah.
dude, you would be getting one strongly worded letter the next day.
Oh, strongly worded letter, I see.
What else can I do?
Yeah, but
I'm not going to
mean,
go
it's
fisticuffs
so
with the
common
6-year-old.
that I've at this point sort of brushed it off quite casually. I've been trying to. People from multiple faiths have reached out to recruit,
Oh yeah, same for me.
including the Aurobindo
Yeah, I
Sri
get it.
Krishna.
I get it. ISKCON.
ISKCON, yes. So this actually didn't even happen in India, and
Where did it happen?
where
Milan.
else? In Milan. And I always usually go out with a bindi, so I'm very clearly a Hindu. And they asked me whether I worshipped Govinda, and I said no, I did not, because I'm not religious, but I am very spiritual, and my alignment is towards Shiva, and has always been. Uh, it started a little argument on the road, and I later, very late, realized that it was futile and I obviously wasting my time. I guess I just wanted to have an argument with someone. Sometimes it gives me a dopamine rush.
I know what you mean.
By just having arguments. It's
Wow.
yeah, yes. I don't know if you have the same thing,
I do.
but arguments give you a dopamine
I
rush.
know, especially if they're intelligent debates.
Yes.
Like if you are arguing with a dumbass,
Yeah. So it took me a
You
while to
will always
realize that I
lose.
was arguing with a dumbass, and then I walked away.
fucking here, I have nothing against religion as an institution. It's the dumbasses.
Oh, I have everything against religion as an institution, because that's when it institutionalizes you.
I get
Religion
that.
is supposed to be very personal.
It's supposed to be a concept and idea. I get that. But even on an institutional level, if you are doing good, I have no problems with you.
I'm
It's-
sorry, but there is no such thing.
It's the dumbasses
There is no
it's
such
the
thing.
dumbasses on the street that I have problem with. And in this film, it is these dumbasses that it's not even the dumbasses that are the problem. It's the people who are representing your institution as in an official capacity.
Where do you draw the line between people who represent the institution and the institution themselves, especially with a man-made religion?
I think
all our religions are man-made.
okay. If you compare an institution, a religious institution, to a company, the representative for me would be the CEO,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. So if the CEO makes a decision, the company is making the decision.
Yeah.
Right. So there is no line.
For me, there is, because say a salesperson goes out, right, does something dumb. The company is not going to bear any responsibility for the sins of one jackass, right? They can cut off that arm, they'll be fine. But if the abuse comes from the top down, as a matter of written policy or practice, that the internal structure, HR, what have you, they know about. And they have been circulating these fucks around for fucking 50 years.
Right.
Then I think there is a big
You're
problem.
not only protecting predators, but you're sending them elsewhere to create more victims.
And how does that fly in the face? Does that not fly in the face of your ideals? To protect people, to bring them into a safe space? How are you contributing to that? You don't think about that, do you? And yet, here you are.
But again, if you want to take that one priest who confesses, if we're to assume that most of them are like that, it's not their fault, and they're not doing anything wrong.
I'm sorry, can you explain that?
That's what he says.
Oh, yeah, him. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because they're doing this in the name of God. They're doing this. They don't derive any pleasure from it, and they're only helping the children come out of their shells.
Sure.
By that logic, there's no fault.
Takes a special kind of
It does.
brain.
It does. The bottom of the barrel is what it takes.
It does.
Anyway, moving on to other things. I have a couple of notes about framings,
Yeah.
but I think I'm going to wait for it a little later because I have a couple of special mentions. Is there anything else you want to add? Because I have 2-3 more pages of
Oh, no,
notes.
go ahead, go ahead. I
Okay.
have watched this film so many times I didn't even take notes.
Right. He did not. I have like 6 pages of notes here.
I've memorized the film.
Right.
You can attest. I was sitting there reciting
He
lines
did.
literally every 2-3 minutes.
Yeah, like how I finally understood how you must have felt watching Lord of the Rings with me.
Yeah. And again, Howard Shore.
Yeah. So one thing I noticed was up until the victim interviews happened like 45 minutes into the movie. It was about going against the Catholic Church. But suddenly there is a shift to show the predator patterns. And then you notice how no matter how many predators you have out there, they all use the same patterns. To whether it is to lure victims or to assault them, they all have the same thing. And despite this being documented for over a century, we still continue to allow godmen to assault victims. I recently watched a Netflix documentary called I don't remember the name, but it was of the 7M
Oh, yeah.
media
Yeah,
production
yeah.
house, run by some dude called Robert or John or whatever, very casual white name, although he wasn't European American, he was Asian American. It's the same shit, dude. And then we've also had this movie come out recently, Sector 36.
Okay, I haven't seen that.
I think that's the name of the movie. It's about the child murderer, the
Oh,
serial
yeah,
child
yeah,
murderer
yeah,
from
yeah,
Delhi.
yeah.
Same patterns.
I have not seen
It's
that
the
either.
same way you lure kids, chocolates, candy, what have you, and then you do whatever you want to because you have the upper hand, the power. And that scene, I'm sorry, I digress. It does take a little while until the editor comes to set things straight with the Spotlight team that no, it's not the predators we're going after. It's the institution we're going after. So the first 45 minutes of the film, it was set up that it's the institution we're going against. But then the movie actually does go in a different direction because they're trying to reach out to victims. They're trying to understand what happens. You're trying to understand how the predators work and everything. So you do take a little tangent, and it does take, again, an outsider. I'm not saying a Jewish person, but an outsider to bring you back to what needs to be done.
Hmm.
I thought that was brilliant writing.
Oh yeah.
If you want to look at it as Act 1, 2, and 3, I think it sits very well.
Hmm.
Right. What was I saying before that? Where was I digressing?
I have no recollection.
Neither do I. So I later on, Stanley Tucci says something that I absolutely love. He says, "If it takes a village to raise a child, it takes a village to abuse one."
Hmm.
That really hit a nerve. And yes, where I was going earlier, where I was digressing earlier, was um, same patterns of these predators. And you know that scene, obviously you do, where one of the journalists realizes that,
Yeah. I know the one you mean.
yeah, there's a couple of abusers living 2 streets down the line. You see the entire walk on the screen, right? It's not a long walk,
It's less than 20 seconds.
right? And then he has kids, so the music, you said it makes you cry every time. The scene itself haunts me. It gives me goosebumps because, as someone who are around the age of people who have kids approximately 4 or
Yeah.
5 years old, I have a lot of friends who have kids that age. I have cousins who have kids that age. It's so difficult to protect them, and you send them out into so many places, whether it is school, whether it is hobby classes, tuitions. If you're a Christian or a Muslim or a person of a different faith, I guess every whatever day you go to this place of worship. Yes, thank you. Or I don't know, even if it's summer vacation, you really don't realize as a child the amount of stress parents are constantly under in order to protect their offspring.
Yeah. Because as a kid, you think you're indestructible, right?
Yeah. But then, how much can you protect someone when every turn you take,
There
you
might be
you have
something
this
like that.
paranoid, you almost become paranoid. It's
Absolutely.
almost like finding out that there's a peephole into your bathroom, or someone left a camera in your bathroom, for
Mm.
instance.
Yeah.
And then every bathroom you go into, all you see is little holes and wonder whether there's a camera inside.
Mm.
it's it haunts you until the day you die. No therapy is going to help you.
No. Because there is no way to stop your exposure to the world.
Yeah.
How do you not think about it then? Especially if you have kids.
Especially if you have kids.
I mean, our kids are four-legged and have fur, so we don't have to worry about that.
But human kids, and by the facts from this movie, they do this to children as young as 4 years old. I do not even want to wonder
Mm.
how you could do that to a 4-year-old child.
Mm.
So, again, you see these patterns left, right, and center, and yet it continues. I don't understand it. I genuinely don't understand it. Then another thing I noted down was right. We come back to framing.
Mm.
When the journalists find out that the initial number they had 13 priests that they had to look into was very, very low,
Mm.
and that the actual number could be 6% of the total number of priests in Boston, which is about 1,500 people. So that takes the number up to 90. What happens is the camera tracks out.
Mm-hmm.
So you subtly notice that these guys are far from the truth. And like you mentioned, how small they might feel due to the lack of their information.
Yeah, and how alone they are in the light of this revelation.
Right, because the more they dig into this, the more they realize the entire town somehow knows about this, except these guys. They've been in the dark all along.
Yeah. And their office is across the street from the high school.
Right. Under your nose.
He was under his nose all along.
I guess that's where you don't see, right? You can't see your upper lip. And then you see the opposite of this happen. The camera tracks in when they realize that the judge, Sweeney, rules in their favor to
Yeah.
make the records public.
Which is a landmark thing because, as they say, Judge Sweeney is an Irish Catholic lady. To rule against the Catholic,
Catholic
Church
Church.
for this
Oof.
case, big fucking precedent right there. Which would have made front page news had it not been for what was coming a few weeks later.
Right. So when they find out that their initial numbers were wrong, they start to investigate. I love the framing that goes into the next couple of scenes because this is what leads to the lighting of the face of the journalist who finds out that there's a abuser right down their street. In that montage, you see the first person you see is Rachel McAdams, where half of her face is covered with hair, her hair.
Oh, I love that.
The rest of them as well, as they're working, you only see one side to their face. You don't see, obviously, because they don't know the entire story. So they know half the story, you see half their face. I think the framing is brilliant. No less than genius, dude.
Good catch, honestly.
No less than genius. And then one more thing I wrote down was when Matt notices an address. Oh, it's the same thing. Eesh, that was scary. It was very scary.
I think people don't give it enough credit as a horror film. Because you take away the music, you just change the music track, it can very easily become a horror film. Because where do you go, right? When Phil Saviano comes in with the box for the first time to the office, and he explains that these guys are predators, they don't distinguish between boys or girls, gender doesn't matter to them, it's only the abuse that matters to them. He makes a point saying that when God comes to your home, like, what do you do? That's the be all end all of it. That's what
Right.
you want.
Right.
So, and even when Rachel McAdams' character goes to meet this victim called Joe Crowley, who was taken advantage of, I say that in very loose terms, he was raped by a priest when he was 16 years old, and just coming to terms with being gay. And he knew he was gay, but that was not public knowledge.
Right.
And the priest who rapes him is the first person who tells him that it's okay to be gay. That's how he learns.
Right.
And that's a huge thing for someone, not only in the faith, which is repressive, but to have a God man tell you that it's okay, it's a huge deal. It's like God telling you it's okay in your house. And then you are introduced to sex by this man. And then you have to be attracted to men for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And who do you talk
Whether
to?
or not you are actually gay.
Yeah.
And I'm sure in most cases you might not be.
Even if you are, it doesn't matter as much. But the fact that this man was introduced to sex in such a manner, which is supposed to be an intimate thing.
And with maybe your peers. Not someone 30
years
bloody
or
years. Yeah.
older. And that's the thing. Who do you talk to? A priest? That's what he jokes about.
Your parents?
Fuck, dude. They'll probably kick you out for having the balls to say something like that about a guardsman.
Or abuse you further.
Yeah.
What did you do? What were you wearing?
There was this one lady, a victim that Rachel McAdams was talking to, who said that there was a lot of pressure from not only her parents but also friends to keep quiet about it. I'm like, Stanley Tucci was right. It takes a town to abuse a child. Because if, okay, 70 priests, okay? On average, let's say each priest has 20 people going to their church. That's a very small number.
Yeah.
If he abuses one person, that kid is obviously not going to keep it to himself or herself.
Yeah.
People will find out. And if 2-3 people find out, we know how gossip works. Entire flock will find out. And so people know they're not doing anything about it.
Right.
Or even if they are trying to, how can you take on an institution that, as was pointed
That's
out,
large.
thinks in centuries?
Yeah. Right. Right. Religions don't think
In
in the near future, they think in centuries.
yeah.
It's why they have to recruit you.
Then regular people like us don't have the resources to take on something like that. Especially, this is pointed out by Stanley Tucci again when he's sitting down with Mark Ruffalo's character outside the court. And he says, and he explains the process of how you can attach the documents when, And he says that those documents that you need, they are public. But if you go, you will not find them. Because they are not there, because the church doesn't want them to be found. And he goes to the records department. And sure enough, the records aren't there.
And what I find further horrible about the whole thing is he goes to a judge to say, hey, these are public records.
Yeah.
I can't see them and I want them because they are public. And the dude says, well, this is a sensitive matter. Yes, a matter of sensitive issues. And then there's this little back and forth about editorial.
Where is the editorial responsibility in publishing it, and where is the editorial responsibility in not publishing it?
Right.
Huge comeback.
Yeah.
For which there is no answer.
Yeah.
Like, how can
And I'm sorry, you are the judge.
It's not up to you to decide
What is sensitive and what isn't.
Yeah. Your job is to, uphold the law.
Yeah.
And the law states that this thing is public. Here is a man with all the proper paperwork to get it. Why are you stopping him to question him?
But that's a fair question to ask. But then again, most of these industries are funded by the church.
Especially in a society like Boston.
Yes.
Because that leads me into my next
Boston,
point very
Rome,
well.
Napoli, wherever you go, where religion has a higher precedence, has a higher priority, and it's not just Catholicism or Hinduism. I don't think the Buddhists do that, but
No, at least not to my knowledge.
Same. Hindus, definitely, yes. They have the power to change,
Oh, yeah.
tweak according to their instincts, according to their will, according to their conveniences. And again, I'm not blaming one religion, I'm blaming all the major religions. Major being the key term here.
And that leads me into the scene at the gala. The Catholics charity gala.
Oh boy, okay, yes.
That's another scene where Michael Keaton has a conversation with, what's his face? Jim Sullivan. And he says that, hey, so this is what you're finding. And Jim says, you really want to talk about this here now? And then he says, look around.
That's not Jim Sullivan.
Yeah, it is.
It's
Jim is the lawyer guy.
Yeah, Jim is the lawyer. He doesn't meet him Is that the gala?
Yeah, that is the gala.
Oh, yeah. Right. I'm thinking of
That's
the
the bar.
bar scene. Right.
We'll get to that.
Mm.
Don't worry, we'll get to that. Fucking hell. And Jim says that, Robbie, it's the church. Look around. These are good people. They do a lot of good for the city. Just enjoy the party.
Mm-hmm.
Enjoy the party.
You want us to enjoy a party when children are being abused?
You want us to keep our mouths shut because the church gives you a lot of money to do a lot of things?
Mm-hmm.
Sure, yeah, the church does a lot of good. I am not going to dispute that. But, and those buts are very important.
Mm.
And that is the bottom line of the film.
You know, I was, again, tangent, but I was thinking when these guys were playing golf,
Mm.
you know how the ecosystem of a golf course works, right? You have to bulldoze down acres and acres just to build this grassy land and constantly irrigate it so the grass remains green and whatnot. And it takes a lot of water and money to maintain it for the for the rich people to have a little golf time with their buddies. Everyone talks about being sustainable and eco-friendly and all that bullshit, and most of them come from companies who are run by these rich people, right? Does it matter if you have, say, donated to a couple of sustainable companies or created a couple of sustainable things or whatever it is? If you've done, say, 60% good towards the earth, does it give you the right to also destroy earth in order to play golf?
Absolutely not.
And it's the same logic we use here, right, with the church. Just because you've done good, does it give you the leeway to do bad?
No,
Where do you...
absolutely not.
Where?
It's like,
At a loss of words.
non-stick technology definitely makes cooking easier.
But also causes cancer.
Yeah, there you go. And cigarettes back in the day.
Oh my god, don't even get me started on the cigarette industry. Do not get me started on the tobacco industry.
It was good for your
Jeez.
health. Coca-Cola had cocaine in it. Where do you want to draw the line?
Listen, ITC brings about 23% of the government revenue. But ITC is also killing people. But their argument is, if we take that away, farmers will no longer have jobs. Farmers don't have jobs as is. Plus, you've taken away all their subsidies as well now. We're digressing for the movie. Okay.
It's very hard not to be.
Yeah. I guess I'm at the end of this thing. The one last thing I want to do is special mention to the person who took care of costumes, Wendy Chuck.
Okay.
Brilliant work.
Oh, I agree.
Palettes were cool, warm, balanced. Nowhere was any person out of shot, out of place, more like. There's one more, something else. Give me a second.
Giving her a second.
I absolutely enjoyed the scene of the morgue.
Oh, you'll have to explain what the morgue is.
You'll have to explain what the morgue is
Okay.
because you are a journalist. But I'd just like to add that since I was a child, I've always wanted to be a librarian. It doesn't pay very well, so I went into engineering. But it's almost it's almost a wet dream of mine to be a librarian. And watching the morgue scenes was so beautiful. It took me back to childhood where I've always wanted to catalog things, put them in place. It's just, and the smell of old paper, Boy.
So the morgue in newspaper parlance is a part of the building where it's the archive, basically. It's where stories go to die. That's why we call it the morgue. You have references and clippings and microfiche, and nowadays it's all digital anyway. It's where they keep all the records that if you need a reference, you just go down and you put in some keywords and it pulls up where certain things are. So if you want to reference an older story or are doing research on if your paper has looked into a certain issue that you want to look into, you want to be able to say, in such and such year, this newspaper did such and such work in this field, which you are now continuing. And also, if you're chasing a story and you don't have enough facts behind you, but there are other clips that support your claim, you can just throw that at the editor and say, hey, these are some things. I have found something new. Let me pursue it. Fuck you. It's just how it works. The editor is not always going to say yes. But the morgue is a very important part of the whole newspaper experience.
Obviously. And one last special mention to Vanessa Knoll and Shane View. I don't know how to pronounce it. Again, French name. Vieau.
The fuck?
These guys are the set directors, set decorators. Be
On
it the
point.
morgue, be it
On
the...
point.
Right?
It's absolutely
the
amazing.
offices where you see staplers at an arm's length. I don't know, there were a lot of places. One thing that particularly caught my eye was in Stanley Tucci's office, where he has a table with 3 thick books atop which sat a rotary phone. It was weirdly aesthetic. I absolutely loved it.
And it makes sense for him.
Yeah. The placements of the books, the way the libraries were shelved and framed. Obviously, framing is very, very important. The office structure, the little things in the office with the random post-it notes here and there, the office cooler, the water cooler. Such brilliant work. I hate the fact that these guys did not get any awards for decorating the sets. But dude, kudos to them.
That's what I said about when I said this film is very ordinary. A lot of effort went into making it seem and look ordinary.
Right.
Everyone dresses normal, which for a film is not normal at all.
Everyone dresses like journalists.
Yeah.
Drab colors,
Yeah.
blacks, dark blues, greys, dark greens.
Yeah.
The only time you see a pop of color is when Mark Ruffalo is running to office.
Yeah.
That's the only time.
You wear the red.
Or maybe there was a couple of other places where there's the archivist is wearing like a pop peach color. But other than that, nah. Drab colors.
Okay, so talking about the minor characters and the repeated gags. There was this one scene in the beginning where they're having a meeting, their usual morning meeting. And Mark Ruffalo's character comes into the newsroom from the spotlight room. And he goes to one of the reporters and says, hey, why is such and such in the 10:30 meeting? And this guy's like, why do you want to know? And he's like, oh, I'm just curious. He goes, go be curious someone else. I've got work to do, huh?
Right. And the fact that they don't acknowledge the bald guy, Steve.
Yeah, that's him.
Right. Fun. Casting, brilliant. Makeup work, brilliant. Set design, brilliant. Framing, brilliant. Lighting, brilliant. Music was brilliant. The narration was brilliant. Cinematography.
Cinematography was simple.
I have zero complaints.
Yeah.
See, the difference between Arrival and this, I would like to mention, is Arrival was so good that I was in awe of the movie that I could not say anything about it. I don't know if you remember, but there was a lot of dead air
Yeah.
from my end
Yeah.
because it's too much for my brain to process, and how good that movie is and how much thought went behind that movie. And though a lot of thought has gone behind this movie, there is so much more soul to this movie that you just can't stop talking about it.
Even the little interactions between the group.
The group and the husband wife too, Rachel
Yeah.
McAdams and her husband.
Yeah.
You see like barely 3 conversations between the two of them, with a maximum of like 7 dialogues going back and forth. Very quick, very spot on. Sends a message. Done.
Also, the point where they have Phil Saviano over and he goes to the bathroom. And the remaining 3 are discussing what they can do. And Michael Keaton asks, like, where are you on, what's his face? Stanley Tucci. Right? And he asks, and he says, I'm getting to him. He's a pain in the ass. And he
So
says-
are you, Mike?
and he just rolls his chair away and he's looking at him, and beside him Rachel McAdams goes, doesn't even look at him.
Yeah. Silent
One
reassurance.
of my favorite fucking scenes. Especially also the one, there are so many. Also the one where immediately after this, when Mark Ruffalo just corners him on the street, like, hey,
Right.
nice to what a weird coincidence that we would run into each other like this.
Right outside his
by the
office.
way,
I also liked the very heart-and-heart conversation between Rachel McAdams and Mark Ruffalo
At
on
the
her
end, right?
balcony.
yeah,
Yes. Yes, when you are investigating, especially such a sensitive topic, I think it's very difficult to see reason and beyond a certain point, like see the big picture, which obviously Roddy has to see. Robbie has to see. Michael Keaton. But the way Rachel McAdams throughout the movie too, she talks to a lot of victims and you see compassion in her eyes, but there's no body language that actually shows compassion, which I found very unlike her.
yeah,
Her body language was very restricted in this movie.
yeah.
But her face, oh my god, her face, like, it's like she's sculpted. I digress a little, but I have such a huge crush on her.
Oh, you
oh
and I
my
both.
god.
You and I both.
It's like she was sculpted out of marble.
Yeah, I have seen her before in other stuff, but it never registered to me that it was the same woman until I started paying attention to, oh fuck, that's her name. Oh, that's the name I recognize. Oh, this is her from this movie that I watched. I have not seen a bad Rachel McAdams film yet. Okay? It was this one, the Husavik one.
Oh my god.
It-
Yes.
That I wouldn't call that one a good movie, but her performance in it,
It was
amazing.
a good movie. What was the name of the movie?
I don't know.
Eurovision.
Oh fuck. Right.
The Rachel McAdams and Will Ferrell and Husavik is a beautiful song. It brings me to tears to this day.
And she played the girlfriend in Doctor Strange,
Right.
which, underselling her abilities
She's
a
also
little
in that Tina Fey movie.
bit. Mean Girls.
Right.
Contrast that role in this.
Right.
I mean, look, Michael Keaton was Batman. Michael Keaton in the MCU was the Vulture. Michael Keaton was Birdman, if you've seen it.
Oh yeah, I have, yes.
Just one of the weirdest films I
Yes,
have seen
it-
in my life.
It is, yes. We should talk about it one day.
Oh, fuck, dude. And continuous shot too. I mean, that film was a cinematic masterclass, and for his comeback film, it was great. But yeah, I mean, it's a who's who.
It is.
Who do I look at?
It
And
is.
even the minor character actors,
There's
when
so
they
much
are
chemistry between the characters.
when they're on screen, they just, pardon the pun, but they pull the spotlight towards them. When
Oh, speaking of puns, I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
But what was that? There was an association for the victims.
Snap,
SNAP.
yeah.
Do you remember the full form?
Not fully, no.
Right. And the dumb shit that I am said, I hope they help the victims
Snap
snap
out
out
of
of it. I'm sorry. I am terribly sorry. I cannot
something,
help how my
something
brain works.
abused by priests.
Oh.
The AP is abused by priests. I forgot the S and
And, well, another reason to watch the movie again
I don't this.
next year.
I know that this is a heavy film to watch, but I can watch it back to back in a day like 3 times.
Mm,
This film for me is such a comfort watch, which is weird given the subject matter, I know.
right.
But when I'm feeling down or when I'm feeling depressed, this is the film that I watch.
Is because the investigative motivation these dudes have,
Mm.
it kind of pushes you to do things in life too.
Yeah, it.
And it reminds you that you kind of have to run around courthouses. You kind of have to run around the city. You have to run around to get things done. And since on the topic of running around, Mark Ruffalo runs a lot in this movie. And I'm going to go on the record and say this, that Mark Ruffalo runs better than Shah Rukh Khan.
But does Mark Ruffalo run better than Tom Cruise?
Oh, yes, he does.
He does.
He does, he does. Because Mark Ruffalo runs like Phoebe. He's chaotic. He's all over the place. You don't know who he's going to elbow, you know, who he's going to run into. He just runs for the heck of running.
Oh no. I'm never going to be able to watch this film the same way again.
You're welcome. But I think that brings us to the end of the movie. But before that, obviously, there's some statistics that the end credits give us. And as much as we'd like to end this on a happy note,
Oh, I still have a few things.
Oh, you do? That's
yeah.
good. That's good. Okay.
Read out the stats.
The stats that we see at the end of the movie is that in 2002 alone, after the Spotlight article was published, they published 600 more stories of the victims because they kept getting calls. 249 priests were publicly accused within Boston Archdiocese, and the number of survivors in Boston is over 1,000. And we looked up the population of Boston in the 2000s, and it was an approximate of 6 lakh people.
Five lakh
5,90,000.
89,000 something.
So that brings us to the statistic of about 1 in 500 people. December 2002, the cardinal resigned from the Boston Archdiocese. So obviously, when I say resigned, you know that he's going to be set up somewhere else, which he did. Surprise, surprise. He was reassigned to Roma in Basilica di Santa Maria Maggiore, one of the highest ranking Roman Catholic churches in the world. I'm sorry, but if that doesn't tell you about this institution, I'm at a loss of words at how gullible you might be. Now, this information was followed by frame after frame, 5 frames in total, of places where major abuse was recorded.
Recorded, reported, whatever you want to call
Yeah,
it.
recorded, reported. Obviously, this isn't the number of cases that actually happened, but yeah. One of which happened to be in Ollur, Kerala. So,
And not just there. I mean,
but Kerala actually had another case also afterwards where, the Catholic Church was reassigned to somewhere in the Vatican. So, not surprised. I remember this. I think it was at least a decade ago.
2016. It was 2016. I remember it because I was studying at that time and I was waking up at 4 in the morning to read AP bulletins, Reuters bulletins, local Indian headlines, whatever. I remember. That was my life back in the day. But SNAP's thing was Survivors Networks of Those Abused by Priests.
I see.
It's created in 1989. Yeah.
Relatively young.
Relatively
must
young.
Say.
But the fact that it, as of now, has 12,000 members in 56 countries, more than. branches for lots of religious groups. You have SNAP for the Baptist Church, you have SNAP for the Orthodox Church, you have SNAP for the Presbyterian Church, for non-religious groups like,
Cults.
Scouts, Boy Scouts.
Ooh, you
Yeah.
see what I was saying? Summer
Yeah.
camps,
Yeah.
scouts. Where do you send your kids? Where are they safe?
I don't know. I don't have an answer for that.
Anyway, you had more to say?
Oh, yeah. There was this one character in this film called Pete Conlon, who was the head of the Catholic Church, what's it called? Charity Committee. Right?
The guy who comes in the bar. Right. Asshole.
Not only does he, it's fine. He is what he is. He is a guy who's always pulled in to defend the church, and obviously he's a very powerful man within the ranks of the church. So, towards the end of the film, Michael Keaton gets invited to have a drink with this man, and they have a more or less friendly exchange, friendly on the surface, where Pete Conlon sort of reminds him that, sorry, not Conlon, something, Peter something, reminds him that, hey, Marty Baron Leaf Schreiber's character, he came from Miami and New York before that. He's gonna be gone after 2 years, and he just wants to do this as a way of leaving his mark. You and I, we've been in this city all our lives. He's gonna go, but where are you gonna go? And that's, I think, as close to a veiled threat as you can get.
Right.
And Michael Keaton says that this is how it happens, right? One guy leans on another guy and suddenly,
The whole village turns away.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then he sort of says, what are you talking about? Or don't be silly or something, and pats his shoulder and goes to leave. And Michael Keaton says, hey, Pete, when we do end up running the story, I'm going to need the Cardinal to give a quote.
Right.
And I think that is just one of the most metal, but also one of the most reportery things to say. Like, quote ke liye kuch bhi karega. Literally. Reporters cannot function unless they get the scoop. They cannot function without a quote. And if it's an important enough story, they will do whatever.
They will. And in this country, they've given their lives for it.
Oh, yeah.
They've been shot.
Oh,
they've
yeah.
been buried. There was a recent case too from UP, Bihar or Haryana, one of these three states. I cannot remember right now. But this dude was documenting how the local MLA was taking all the money to build a bridge, but instead built a very dingy wooden bridge. And because all of his stories were coming out, he was later found murdered and in a water tank, I guess. And he had a lot of broken ribs, liver damaged, whatnot. So, abused and killed. Reporters have given their lives to tell you the truth.
Yeah. And listen, as much shit as the occupation gets nowadays, I am still very proud to have been a part of it, and that I still retain the skills to this day. I mean, I don't get to use them a whole lot nowadays, but it's still there.
Would you consider me a journalist because I wrote sports correspondence articles?
Absolutely.
There's no investigative work there.
I don't care.
I just watched football matches and wrote about them.
There's analysis there. It's not about just reporting facts.
I guess.
Different branches do different things. Sure, you're not supposed to interpret facts as per your biases, but the layman doesn't know the offside rule. That's on you to make it simple for them. Right. So, absolutely, you're doing journalistic work. Fun bits of trivia.
Or?
You know the scene in the baseball park
Yes.
where they're...
Yes, the four men sitting next to each
yeah.
other.
So the actual Mike Resendez and Sasha Pfeiffer and the others are seen sitting behind them
Oh,
in that scene
oh.
in the crowd.
Was Sasha Pfeiffer fifing?
Sasha Pfeiffer had her own radio show.
Oh,
So
that's nice.
you can look it up on YouTube.
Okay.
She is a great fun personality,
Okay.
but tough as nails.
But does she play the flute?
I don't know. Okay, you'll have to ask her. Jesus Christ.
I'm sorry. It's just such a fun name.
It is. Second bit of trivia. The other writer they have, the one they report to, Ben Bradley Jr.
Hmm.
In real life, he is not the actor, but the character is the son of Ben Bradley Sr., who was the reporter of the Washington Post when the Watergate scandal broke. Yes. The same character
Nice.
Tom Hanks plays in the Post.
Right.
Yeah.
Which we're going to cover soon.
Post?
Yeah, obviously.
Okay.
Maybe not this year, but next year.
Yeah, I'll look forward to that. And the real Ben Bradley Jr. is in the film in that one scene where the reporters are gathered around the TV when news of 9/11 breaks.
Oh.
So he's there.
Oh.
So they paid homage to a lot of them.
Right.
For another thing, the Matt, the one who goes on that little walk to see the house where there's a clinic and stuff. The actual guy, when interviewed, said that my only desire was that someone prettier than me plays the role. I have no complaints.
Right.
And all of the actors, they did a lot of research to figure out who their counterparts are, because these people are still alive, right? And Mark Ruffalo had to learn Mike Resendez's way of speech.
Right. It is a little skewed.
Slow, heavy. And the
With
actual...
the mouth closed on one side.
Yeah. Mike Resendez does talk like that.
I see.
You can find interviews of him. So they really took it seriously, which for a film like this demands it.
Which kind of now makes me wonder whether Sasha Pfeiffer actually has that body language, the very restrictive body language that we see from...
Maybe she does, but she looks very similar to Rachel McAdams in how she looks. You can look her up if you want.
I am going to, especially now that I know she has a YouTube channel.
Not a YouTube channel, but she was a radio host.
Oh, nice. Oh, nice.
The very first scene of the film.
Oh, her name does have a P.
Yeah.
Pfeiffer.
Pfeiffer,
The German spelling.
Yeah.
The Old English spelling does not have a P.
What is the Old English spelling?
Pfeiffer.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This is the German spelling.
Okay. I guess makes sense, given how white she is. But yeah, listen. I will not deny the fact that I am racist. Let us get that out of the way.
Please, we are Indians. That's what we are.
Exactly. Who isn't? It's fun.
Right.
Especially to people in neighboring states. But enough said there. Where was I? Yeah, opening scene. As soon as the piano music ends, and it starts with the assistant DA showing up at a police station, where these two cops are talking, and a priest shows up to console children and their mother.
Right.
Like saying something or the other. And one cop says to the other, like, a few people from the media showed up, but we shoot them away, nothing major. No one from any major publications came. But since the assistant DA just showed up, he's saying that, that one's going to be tough to explain at the arraignment. And the other
What
guy says,
arraignment?
from the get-go, you know exactly what the film is about.
Right.
Even if you did not watch a single trailer.
And the fact that everyone is in on it.
Yeah. Even the cop that Sasha Pfeiffer is interviewing in the montage of investigation, he says, I shouldn't be talking about this.
You should be talking about this.
Yeah, and he says everyone knew. The chief knew. Everyone from the top down knew what was happening. What can you do against the church as an institution? Like, that's not to make the same comparison, but that's like taking on the White House. Almost bigger, almost. Because let's not forget, a pope 1,000 years ago convinced the entirety of Western Europe to march to Jerusalem for war.
Right.
What's stopping them from doing it now? And enough people will listen.
There's power in masses.
Yeah. There's also idiocy in masses, which is the power.
There was once a case in Tamil Nadu, couple of years ago. 11-year-old girl suicided because she was being forced by the church to convert and she did not want to convert, and she complained. Her parents complained to the police and the police did nothing, and afterwards the media chimes in and genuinely has the audacity to ask the parents, why didn't you say anything before? And the parents are crying saying, we did complained multiple times to the police, but no one did anything. And then after a certain point, the parents also get over the grief of losing their child and the church walks away.
Because again, it doesn't matter to them. They think in centuries. They'll be around doing the same shit.
And again, I want to reiterate the fact that this isn't anything about a particular religion. This is about those institutions that are
Perpetuating.
skewed, unethical, immoral, under the guise of being holier than thou.
And you will find this in every
Major religion.
organization. Doesn't matter if it's a government thing. Doesn't matter if it's a religious thing. Doesn't matter if it's a social welfare thing.
Doesn't even matter if it's an educational institution.
Oh
sometimes.
yeah, dude, education especially.
The number of children abuses that the education system has pushed under the rug because they did not want to fire the teacher or bring more light onto their educational institution is astounding.
All the stories I have, but I will never be able to say on the record.
Yes, educational institutions do the same thing too. So, again, I come back to the same question. Where the fuck do you send your children? Why do you keep having so many children?
This is the right time to talk about our sponsor, Menforce Condoms. Not really, but if you're out there and you're listening, hey, we will not say no.
We are very actively child-free.
Yeah. Thanks to your products too.
I said my cousin's listening to this. Okay, please.
I don't
Be
care.
civil.
I am civil. I have not said a single bad word. I have always been a nice person.
But I guess that brings us to the end. This was an incredibly long...
Think about it. There are still more things to talk about.
Are there?
Yeah. If you think about...
Go on. We have another hour
We've
here.
talked about the main crop of actors, right? The side characters, not only do they embody the role, not only do they demand the spotlight, but everyone is given their moment. The victims, like Phil or Paul, I forget his name. The guy at Mitch Garabedian's office that Resendez interviews. When he
Phil.
tells his story, he is so detached from it and he constantly keeps asking that, are you sure you want to listen to this shit? Twice he asks because he cannot believe that someone is actually going to take an interest. And when in the beginning he says that, hey, I don't want my name mentioned anywhere because I just had a kid and he's 1 year old, but I don't want him to grow up and read about this. And by the end of the interview, he says, you can use my name. And don't think we just get these fuckers, will you?
And then you realize how many victims actually don't share anything. There was this friend of Michael Keaton's who he later
Yeah, the
realizes
classmate. Yeah.
a classmate, right? And he didn't have to say anything. He just asked the right questions, and the dude understood what was going on. And he says, "My wife doesn't know either."
Dude, that guy, that fucking actor, whenever I see the film,
Hmm.
the transformation his expression undergoes in
Hmm.
3-4 seconds,
Hmm.
I am, I have like
Chef's kiss.
chills.
Yep.
I have chills right now every time I think about him.
Right.
Like, and this guy was taken advantage of at school, an educational institution,
Hmm.
where you had someone called Father Talbot
Hmm.
as the hockey coach.
Hmm.
I repeat, an educational institution where this guy wanted to play sports, and even there he wasn't safe.
Hmm.
And yes, once they find it, the newspaper guys call a meeting with the principal, and they bring in Pete and another guy called Jack who runs at PR for the Boston College. And
Again, they're trying to push it under the rug.
yeah, because their main thing is how do you know that the president and the board would have known?
Hmm.
And the principal comes out and says that if I had been the president, then I would have known.
Hmm.
Why do you think they shipped him away?
Hmm. Hmm.
And then Jack says, tries to be dismissive about it. And Michael Keaton says that, did you play any sports? You played football.
Hmm.
I ran track. This Father Talbot coached the hockey team. So I guess we were just lucky, you and I.
Right.
And that ties into Mark Ruffalo's outburst too. And he says, and I quote, "It could have been you, it could have been me, it could have been any one of us."
Hmm.
How flimsy is luck?
And this is immediately after, I forget the third journalist's name, Matt,
Matt.
recently figured out that the abuser was living 2 streets down the lane,
Mm-hmm.
down his home. Another scene that I scoffed at was when this victim told his mom about the abuse. The priest came home to apologize. Now, the priest coming home is a big thing because it's almost as huge as God coming home, God Himself coming home. And he apologized and requested not to press any charges. And when he was asked, "Well, what did your mother do?" he laughs and says, "She put out cookies for him."
Imagine that.
Imagine that.
The one thing I can say, regardless of our parents' uh, lack or intensity of religious fervor, if I had come home and told my parents that, hey, this and this happened, they would have gone out with weapons to hack that person to pieces.
They better do.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but as a parent, it's your responsibility to protect your child.
Or avenge them.
Avenge me, Killy! But yes, you're right. It's
insane.
I'm sorry,
to
I
me.
cope with tough situations with bad humor.
It's insane to me that, like, these parents, instead of doing more, I mean, I cannot put myself in a position of being that religious to the point where, offenses against my child are,
Forgiven.
yeah. They are writing letters to the cardinal. 7 kids in a single household got abused by the same fucking priest.
Yeah.
And every actor, when they have their outburst, be it Phil, be it Joe, whoever it is, they are so fucking convincing in the manner in which they have their outburst that you felt bad for the priest guy. Sure, I felt bad for these guys, and I'm like, oh, dude, what?
Listen, I'm again not saying what he did was right, but And this is why you don't see anything about the predator's mindset, because once you do, there is a small possibility that you might understand their point of view.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you don't want to. You don't want to take away from the crux of the film.
Mm.
There. It's a weird world out there.
Weird is.
We're glad to survive if we do. And we are glad to survive despite sexual assault if we do.
That's the thing, right? When Mike Resendez is interviewing that guy at the lawyer's office, he looks for a second and there are multiple puncture wounds in this guy's arm, which he folds away. Which they don't mention it, but it's up to the viewer to like you and I know what that is.
And one of the victims mentions that, right? You turn to the bottle or you turn to the needle.
Yeah.
Whatever works, help take away the pain. Help take away the memory of whatever happened.
And Joe Crowley straight up says that I'm sober now, but back then I was a complete mess. And it makes them even easier to take advantage of. It's a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Especially towards the end, when the story is published, and Rachel McAdams is sitting down with her Nana, who goes to church 3 times a week, and they are reading the story together. I thought it was a nice touch, because it would be very easy for her to, slap it down in front of her and say, this is what your priests are up to. Instead, she sits and shows enough compassion with this person who has the best interests at heart. Maybe doesn't know the extent of the damage that is being done. And when all she does is ask for a glass of water. And she's from a different generation. Obviously, she's not going to be bawling her feelings out. But even in that little moment, I feel like it's not about victory, right? It's not about having a moral victory over believers. It's about awareness.
Right.
At the end of the day, that's what the newspaper exists for. It's to spread awareness. It's to tell people that, hey, XYZ is happening under your nose.
Yeah.
It's why Mitch Carabedian, when he reads the story, he says, can I keep a copy of this? And Mike Resendez says, yeah. And when he goes to leave, he sees there are 2 young kids in Mitch's office.
Yeah.
With a guardian of some kind.
Yeah.
And he pauses and Mitch comes up and says, I picked them up from some other place 2 days ago. Never stop doing your work, Mr. Resendez. And it's a reminder that despite their little victory, it's such a small dent in such a huge armor. It might as well not matter. But it does. It does, because when did this film come out? 2015. 10 years later, we're still talking about it. And not only are we talking about the film, we are talking about issues that this
Have
film brought up.
persisted since the dawn of time, my love.
Yeah.
I'm not too old, but I'm not too young either. 3 decades on this planet, and I have seen waves of feminism happen. And then I looked into it and I noticed that the struggle for female equality goes back centuries,
Oh, yeah.
eons. And we're still having the same discussions.
It's kind of disgusting if you think about it.
It is exhausting even. So, yes, it's a small dent,
But an
And in the
important
grand
one.
scheme of things, no, in the grand scheme of things, they're going to move on.
Yeah. Like, again.
And things will continue to happen. Like I said, the 7M cult that happened,
Mm.
the predators use the same pattern, same techniques to lure in the same kind of victims over and over and over again.
Yeah. It's a funnel system. And there are an indefinite and unending
Number of,
stream of
yes,
victims.
yes,
Or potential victims, I should say.
yes.
Some are lucky enough to come out of it. As we saw in that documentary, as we saw in this film, that they're the lucky ones because they are still alive.
Hmm. And if you happen to be the one listening, happen to be one of those survivors, there are a lot of support groups online that you can reach out to. If you haven't sought therapy yet, please do. Uh, Trust me, I understand that getting the right therapist is a trial and error method, and the number of errors pile on and you can get frustrated, but there will be a therapist out there that will listen to you properly and understand what you're going through, especially if you reach out to the right kind of people. So there is one called Swayam that works towards ending violence against women. But what we actually want to look for, especially since we're on the topic of child abuse, there's one called Arpan NGO. They work with, they're registered in Mumbai, and they work on the issue of child rights and molestation awareness and so on. And especially if you're an education institution owner, teacher, principal, um, have classes that teach kids good touch, bad touch, whatever it is,
That's
the
extremely
terminology
important.
is that you're calling these days. Um, Unfortunately for adults, most of the support groups are for women, but it does not mean that men don't have any. Please look into it, and we're glad you survived.
Here's
We're
the thing
glad
too.
you're here.
When you're a kid, right, you don't know what is a good touch or a bad touch.
That's why they need to be
Mm.
taught.
I wasn't. And it was like in my mid 20s that I figured out that, oh, that happened.
Hmm.
That's the case for
That is
everyone.
true. That is true.
Everyone.
By now I'm 31, and I've met a good number of people, and the number of people who have casually told me they were assaulted in their childhood is, for a lack of a better word again, astounding.
Yeah.
I am befuddled by the number of people who were assaulted as a child and have just laughed it off.
Yeah. I mean, me being one of that number.
Yeah.
What else am I supposed to do?
What are you supposed to do?
I'm living my best life now.
Hmm.
I don't need to, you know. And the thing is, most of this happens with family members.
That, again, we're going into a whole other side of things. But yes, you're absolutely right. Most of them happen with family members.
And what are you going to say?
Uncles,
Are you going to tell
grandfathers,
your mother that her sister's husband did something?
Yeah.
And that this is a
Yeah.
hypothetical.
Yeah.
But are you really going to go ahead and say that as a 12-year-old?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
So what can you do?
What can you do is, kids, grow some balls. Find the courage to tell anyone. It doesn't matter who. Tell as many people as you can.
Also, you have a smartphone, look up support groups.
Yes. Kids today aren't like kids. When we were kids, we didn't have access to technology like you do today. So, yeah. Voice yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And
Draw attention to it however you can.
I guess that's it.
Yeah. And yeah.
To the makers of Spotlight.
Thank you.
Geniuses. Thank you for the work you put out.
Mm. And if this was of any interest to you, Spread the awareness, not just about the film, but about the issues surrounding it. Watch the film if you haven't already. If you're not light of stomach, you can read the articles as well. They go into detail about what happened to whom and whatnot. They are still available on the websites.
Hmm.
Yeah. Spotlight 2015. One of
I
my
can't wait
favorite
for a
films.
movie to come out about Neil Gaiman. I am sorry I dropped that.
I don't think that's gonna happen anytime soon.
I mean, he is out there.
Mm.
Anyway, that's about it. If it's too long, we might chop this into 2 parts.
This will go up on Spotify as well as YouTube.
As
so
well as YouTube.
follow us on both.
Yes. Check out our cute cat faces.
Yes.
And
Like and subscribe to, help us do more of this stuff
yeah.
if you want us to. But it's not like you have a choice because we will.
Subscribe, I guess, so you know when we post something. We usually do this once a month if we remember to post it, or
Exactly.
we post twice in a month.
And
with the
if you're
pending
wondering
month.
why we would forget to post, you can check out our other podcast where we talk about a lot of issues that plague the brain.
Yes.
That's it from the both of us. Thank you for tuning into the annual watch list, and we will be back next month with another film.
Yes, hopefully this time we're going to talk about lighter film.
We can hope.
I think we are. I think it's one of the Cornetto trilogies.
We'll see. We'll decide.
Definitely we'll talk about a lighter film because this was very, very heavy. We've thought long and hard about doing this, and as you can see, it is a heavy, touchy topic.
And
so
not just the topic, but the film also. I cannot stop talking about it. As you can see, my wife has tried to end this twice. I just keep going. That's what she said. But yeah.
Are you done?
Yeah.
Wonderful. See you all in the next month. Thank you for listening if you've listened this far. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.